Hello, and welcome to episode 29 of Desert Fathers with Bishop Erik Varden. I'm Jamie Baxter from Exodus 90, and I'm honored to walk alongside you during this adventure into the desert. The early Christians were one in mind and heart. We read in the Acts of the Apostles, all who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. The unity of the early Christian community contrasted with the twisted or tangled nature of their contemporary generation. As Bishop Varden taught last week, what was important in the time of the apostles and later in the Desert Fathers is important for us today. That we give what we make up our minds to do, as St. Paul says, in the light of Christ's calling upon us personally. When we hold back in the darkness of secrecy and isolation, as we often do, and pretend to offerings we have not made, we are like a body torn apart. We live divided from within when Christ came to make us whole. It is easy, as we go along, to get tangled up in our possessions. It always has been. The Desert Fathers show us that this can be so even with good and holy possessions. Indeed, the scriptures themselves, and perhaps even holy sites like this. With that, I'll hand it over to Bishop Varden as we read and meditate on a saying from Abba Evagrius and Abba Serapion. This is episode 29 of Desert Fathers. Lovely books.
An elder said regarding one of the brothers that he possessed a single gospel, then that, having sold it and given the value of it for the feeding of the poor, he uttered this memorable sentence, I have sold the very word that said to me, sell your possessions and give to the poor. A brother put a question to Abba Serapion, saying, tell me one word. The elder said, what have I to say to you? You have taken what belongs to widows and orphans and put it on that window ledge. For he saw that it was full of books. There's a scene in Sidney Pollack's Out of Africa, the story of Karen Blixen's life in Kenya, that has haunted me since I first saw the film in a small town cinema at the age of 12. Astutely, it touches a weakness of mine. The scene occurs in a club in Nairobi. It is Karen's wedding day. Fresh out of Denmark, she has tied the knot with her flitting cousin Braw. Seeing him flirt with other women, she flares what is in store for her. At nightfall, she wants to set out for her farm at the foot of the Ngong Hills, so slips upstairs to change. She finds the door of a club room open, and that room is lined with bookcases. Unable to resist, Karen goes in to have a look, then is surprised by the arrival of Barclay Cole, a friend of the room's resident, Dennis Finch Hatton, the future great love of Karen's life. The role of Karen is wonderfully played by Meryl Streep, who exclaims in a mock Danish accent, "Ooh, I'm sorry, I'm afraid you've caught me snooping." Michael Kitchen, who plays Cole, retorts, "Well, it's not my room, it's Dennis's room, and Dennis won't mind. It's the thing about Dennis, he doesn't mind." Karen says, "He has lovely books. Does he lend them?" Then Barclay tells this little story. We had a friend, Hopworth. He got a book from Dennis, and he didn't return it. Dennis was furious. I said to Dennis, "You wouldn't lose a friend for the sake of a silly book, would you?" And he said, "No." But he has, hasn't he? I find it happens often enough that people who generally don't cling to material things or comforts, people who don't much mind, are furiously tied to their books. Finch Hatton could manage for weeks in the bush with a single shirt, but he defends with a lover's jealousy the honour of a volume of Keats. This pattern can repeat itself in monasteries too. A monk may get contentedly by on cold gruel, wear a tattered habit, sleep on a sagging mattress of straw. He may be gentle, patient, and kind, yet spontaneously show his teeth if anyone draws too close to his bookshelf. There's something admirable about this. A good book is a treasure. It carries a presence. Books can be comforts in sorrow, guides in perplexity, lights in darkness. Monks have always valued books. Much monastic literature is made up of reading lists. St. Benedict speaks for the tradition when he writes, "For anyone hastening on to the perfection of monastic life, there are the teachings of the Holy Fathers. What page, what passage of the inspired books of the Old and New Testaments is not the truest of guides for human life? What book of the Holy Catholic Fathers does not resoundingly summon us along the true way to reach the Creator?" Then he sets a number of specific texts. The Fathers were not anti-intellectual. We've seen how the likes of Arsenius and Antony had cultivated minds. Evagrius was an outstanding scholar. Monastic collectors of books enabled preservation through dark times of precious literature that would otherwise have been lost. In the Latin Middle Ages, an abbey's books were kept in an armatorium, a word that means arsenal. Books give us weapons we need to fight illusions and temptations. The Word made flesh, divine intelligence incarnate, told us to love the Lord our God with all our heart and with all our soul and with all our mind. And for that purpose, minds must be mended and nurtured. What Serapion condemns is not reading, but the storing of books as trophies. Our possessive tendency so easily shifts from material objects to spiritual goods. Even the exalted realities given us as instruments by which to attain the truth may be turned into idols before which we pay obeisance, be it in the candlelit austerity of a monastic cell. We may not have to follow literally the example of the monk who sold his gospel to feed the hungry, but it should trouble us. Do I live by the enlightenment I seek in what I read? Or do I bask in its reflected glory, hugging it as if it were a possession due to me, present in the books that adorn my own window ledge? I think of someone, a dear person I was blessed to know, who provided a counterpoint to proprietorial bibliophilia. Margaret Wildman, a fine Cambridge academic, was the university's first female head of house. In her old age, this most gracious woman, who lived to be, like Antony, 106, established a little ritual. Anyone invited to her home for lunch or tea would be asked, on leaving, to choose a book from her library. Any book. Knowing what books had meant in Miss Wildman's life, I was touched by this gesture. It revealed great inner freedom. Books are given us for a time, to feed and form our lives. Then they are to be passed on. The call to take all we own and give it to the needy will face us all on our deathbed. It's good to get some practice in advance.
An elder said regarding one of the brothers that he possessed a single gospel, then, that having sold it, and given the value of it for the feeding of the poor, he uttered this memorable sentence: I have sold the very word that said to me, sell your possessions and give to the poor. A brother put a question to Abba Serapion, saying, tell me one word. The elder said, what have I to say to you? You have taken what belongs to widows and orphans and put it on this window ledge. For he saw that it was full of books. Good books open our minds to the truth of God and his creation. May we learn to possess our books as we read them with open hands. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. If you have been blessed by the podcast, please share it with a friend today. Visit desertfathers.com to subscribe to our email newsletter and to submit a question to Bishop Varden for our next Q&A. That's desertfathers.com. Desert Fathers is brought to you by Exodus 90, produced by EWTN, and written by Bishop Erik Varden. Brothers, as summer comes to a close, join me and thousands of men worldwide in reviving an ancient and powerful devotion to St. Michael the Archangel, called St. Michael's Lent. On August 15th, the Assumption, we will begin 40 days of prayer, asceticism, and fraternity in imitation of St. Francis of Assisi, who observed St. Michael's Lent with great devotion in his time. Download the Exodus 90 app or visit exodus90.com to learn more. We start August 15th. All Holy Fathers and Mothers of the Desert, pray for us.